Donald Trump has just gone straight out, guns blazing at Ron DeSantis. Yesterday, he directly warned Ron DeSantis against running for president. Here's what that sounded like.
Ron DeSantis is a young man who is not doing well against me in the polls, to put it mildly. I believe that if he decides to run for president, which will only hurt and somewhat divide the Republican Party, which we don't need, he will lose the cherished and massive MAGA vote and never be able to successfully run for office again. I believe that. If he remains governor, which is what Florida voters assumed he would do, it would be a whole different story. Just saying. But who knows?
Okay, so this is basically, again, Trump is a master at this. That is his Truth Social post that he made that he now has read and put out the video of, which is like, I love this, Buck. It's like a remix edition of a popular song. Trump was like, hey, this truth that I put out did really well. Let me record a video version of it and pop it out so it can be even more widely disseminated. So we talked about this Truth Social before. First question for you, Buck. Let's presume DeSantis announces, runs, loses to Trump. How, if at all, does that impact DeSantis in running for president in 2028 in your mind?
So if I'm going to play the role here of DeSantis cornerman for a second, here's how I would, if I'm the guy.
Got the towel, the towel, squirt bottle, giving him a little bit.
Rock.
Yeah.
You gotta finish him off, yeah. Rock, get in there, Rock. If I'm Mickey in this case,
yeah.
Here's what I would say. First of all, hey, look at the president right now. Who's the president right now? I'm not even talking about the fact that 2020. I just mean Joe Biden lost and lost and lost again. You just don't know with politics. My point being. Yep. No one can project out what 2028 looks like, who's going to be in the spotlight. Remember when Chris Christie was the guy for the GOP?
Yeah.
Remember when Scott Walker was the guy for the GOP? Like, you go down the list.
Remember when Rudy Giuliani was the guy? Everybody thought Giuliani was going to be the nominee.
There have been a number of people that
Jeb Bush.
Newt Gingrich had a moment. Remember, Newt Gingrich, a lot of you will remember this. Newt slapped the media right across the face, so to speak, at one of the presidential debates. This is back in the Romney election, if I remember correctly. And it was like a moment for him, right? All of a sudden, Newt surged in the polls. So, look, no one knows what 2028 looks like. And I think that's, I would not find that to be compelling at all as a reason to be like, well, I'll just, I'm going to wait or whatever, because you don't know. I would also say, why is DeSantis the only one? Why isn't Trump saying, Nikki Haley, get out of the race or else you'll lose the MAGA vote? Well, we all know why. Because the only person who has any chance based on, any numbers we've seen would be Ron DeSantis of Florida. So on the one hand, it's pretty straightforward. It's, nice governorship and political future you got there, Ron. Shame if something happened to it. That's what Trump's saying. On the other hand, it's a little bit Trump doth protest too much. This guy hasn't even announced yet. You're putting out things telling him he better not announce. And I don't know how it will sit with people, this idea that Trump put out there, that if Ron were to run and were to, let's just say, win the primary, you would have Trump voters who wouldn't come out so they wouldn't come out and vote for the Republican nominee against Joe Biden. We want 4 more years of Biden. That's what Trump said. So that is what he just stated in that Truth Social video. So I don't know. I don't think it's a brushback pitch for sure, but I don't think he's looking for the walk.
It's interesting, Buck, the video and audio version of the tweet. And again, it's a Truth Social, but when we say tweet, basically the same thing. It sounds different to me on video than it did when I read it myself. Does that make sense? Because when I read this myself, I came on the radio and I said, it sounded to me like Trump was hinting that he might be interested in DeSantis as his VP. The way that is delivered, again, it's equivocal at the end, right? Because who knows? It's kind of letting you make your own determination about what he exactly is hinting towards. Maybe it's, hey, I'll endorse you in 2028. Maybe it is, hey, I'll consider you as my VP. We'll let people out there can make their own determinations, but I don't think it's so calculated. Again, here's Trump going after DeSantis again. This is cut one, double barrel. Listen.
This is just out. I guess that Ron DeSantis is not quite as popular in Florida as people thought. I assume, among other things, that they don't want their Social Security cut or their Medicare cut. Can't do that, Ron.
So that is Trump's line of attack. I don't know that that's going to work because I don't think people who have seen Ron DeSantis as governor are like, oh, this guy has made his bones being like, I'm going to cut Social Security, I'm going to cut Medicare, all of those things. I don't think that line of attack works. I think Trump is trying out a series of attacks to see what works.
Here is another reality. Trump ran only against Democrats in 2020, right? So when Trump was running, he was the president. So
yep.
Now he's never had to run against a Republican field with a record of what he said and did that he's going to have to actually explain to people. Now, I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying this is a new thing for Trump. In 2016, it was all these compelling ideas, amazing live performances, and, crooked Hillary and the whole thing, right? It was the most amazing political show we've ever seen. In a primary now, Trump would have to explain decisions that he made as president. And people can say it's not going to matter. He's amazing. Okay, fine. But he's never done that before. And I think that it gets a lot harder to tell. Like, you've noticed has he said anything about how Ron wasn't good on COVID recently? Because I think
he's learned that that's a bad line of attack.
That's just not landing. That's just not landing.
Yeah.
That's actually insulting, and I say this now as a new Floridian, that is insulting the intelligence of your base and of your voters. Saying Ron can't hack it, Ron's not the man, Ron, that's all fair game. People are going to say, okay, I might be all in on that. But what I mean is Trump has never really, he was able to swat away all of his rivals in the 2016 election because it was just, here are my ideas, here's who I am, here's what I'm going to do. This time around, it's going to be, what? Who did you make your top advisors in the White House? What? By the way, I'm playing cornerman here. I'm just saying, this is going to be a challenge that he hasn't faced before.
Here is what I would say Trump's particular genius is as a politician. And I say this because I think some people have learned it from him. I think a lot of politicians still haven't. Trump is better than any politician I have ever seen at intuiting by the reaction of people to him what the best message is. He's almost like you remember, Buck, there used to be those guys who would walk around in the mall and they would bring you in and they'd give you like $10. This is going to sound, the start of that story sounds kind of creepy. But when I was a kid growing up in
what are you talking
they give you $10 and they just asked you if you would no. So when I was a kid in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, at Rivergate Mall, right? The mall near me, there would be people walking around. They were like consumer research people, and they would show you like a television advertisement or a movie commercial, and they would say like, hey, rate how you like it. And then they would take that in, right, that consumer research. They do it for all the television shows and all the new movies and everything else. You have a dial in front of you. And then they would give that research to people, and they would say, hey, they really liked this version of your movie ad. They really liked the way that you were trying to sell a car here. Trump does that with all of his rallies and all of the tweets and truths that he puts out. He is incredibly good at taking back that feedback and dialing his campaign to adjust to what people are saying they want.
Point out, we've been saying, or, I think I've definitely said it on the show, I think you have too, that the attacks on DeSantis for COVID, that wasn't landing. And I think that's obvious because Trump isn't doing that anymore.
Yeah,
he's moved to other
that's
things.
What I'm saying.
So people who were, anyone who thought that was unfair or were angry at that observation, I think it was an observation of what the reality of how the base was reacting to it. When Trump, and I think he's going more in this direction now, he leaves open. You notice with Trump, it's always, it's always carrots and sticks, right? So he leaves open for DeSantis. He's like, look, you stay as governor. We are cool as can be. Things are going to be awesome.
We're buddies. Yeah.
You've got nothing but clear skies in 2028. And so when Trump starts to talk like that and say, look, I'm the guy that has to be against the Biden machine. I'm the only one that can fight against this, swamp and all the other stuff that we know. I'm the de facto leader of the Republican Party. I think Ron is great at what he's doing now and will be a great candidate down the line, but today's not his day. I think reasonable people can hear that within the, GOP base and say, maybe some of them find that very compelling. When he says that, Ron DeSantis was like getting, drunk with high school girls and did a terrible job in COVID, it's like, come on, man. That's not, and he stopped doing it. So anyone who says, oh, that's unfair, excuse me, Trump realizes this, to your point about dialing it down.
Yeah, and here's a question I would ask for you and everybody else out there, 800-282-2882. Does Trump need DeSantis in the race to be the best version of himself? Just want everybody to think about that, because knocking out tomato cans is not going to get you in shape, to continue the boxing metaphor, when you actually have to step in the ring and really deliver. The best thing I can say about a competitive primary, 2016 made Trump an incredible candidate because he had to go up against so many really talented politicians and emerge the victor. It's like if you go work out one day and then you don't work out for 6 months and you go into the gym, you do a bad job of reflecting yourself. You need to be in there for those battles.
I feel
Does he
judged
need DeSantis?
right now,
Yeah, because otherwise, Buck, just think about it. We'll talk about it when we come back. If DeSantis doesn't run, effectively this race is over, right? You got a bunch of Trump,
that's right,
let's be fair, acolytes who hope to be in his cabinet. There won't really be any fireworks. Trump is going to be the nominee. Does he stay in fighting shape as he moves into the next primary, regardless of how it goes against DeSantis?
Lines open, by the way, on this one. Want to hear from you, both sides of this one. We are going to air the calls from both sides, meaning you think this is, you're in the Trump side on this, you're on the DeSantis side on this. 800-282-2882. What about Trump's team?
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people who think that it's just Trump. It's not just Trump.
Yeah.
You can't win a campaign. You can't win a multi-billion-dollar campaign without having some people around you who know what they're doing, especially when the Democrats figured out what happened in 2016. Didn't allow that again. CNN's not going to give him $1 billion of free advertising, folks. So who's the team? I think the primary is necessary to get the right team in place around him, too.
And have them firing on all cylinders in the same way that the candidate is. It's interesting.